Alright, good evening and welcome to the Poliscope on Dominion Television. I am Samson Balogun, and tonight we shine a spotlight on a troubling dynamic in Nigeria's public life. The moment when power trumps principle, when might overrides right. Our focus, the recent face-off between Nyesom Wike, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, and soldiers in Abuja, and how that incident reflects a much larger culture and land revocation, allocation, and grabbing across the country. In the capital's Gadua district, Minister Wike confronted armed soldiers who refused to allow his officials access to a piece of land, alleging no valid allocation, no proper procedure. The scene has stirred debate. Are we witnessing a breakdown of the rule of law, a misuse of military personnel in civilian land disputes? How are ordinary Nigerians, the common man, as you would say, impacted when land rights are treated as tokens of power rather than protected rights? Tonight, we'll examine the clash of civil authority and military might in Abuja, land allocations and revocation practices in places such as the FCT and Ibadan or your state, because we are coming back to Ibadan shortly. The role of government, politics, and money in shaping who wins and who loses in the land game. In short, when might overrides right, what that means for democracy, for property rights, and for everyday Nigerians out there. So, very quickly, let me set the stage. In a constitutional democracy, power is supposed to flow from the people. The rule of law is meant to constrain authority. But what happens when authority uses its power to sideline process, legality, and fairness? The incident in Abuja is emblematic, right? On 11th of November 2025 in the Gadua district of the FCT, Minister Wike, former governor of Rivers State, arrived with his officials. They encountered soldiers preventing access to a site. Wike declared, "You cannot carry a gun to intimidate anybody here. I am not one of those that they can intimidate." Yes, he has the right to say that anyway. He said the land had no valid allocation in the FCT authorities' record. The soldiers claimed simply they were following orders. And it was clear, I'm following orders. I'm not foolish, I'm not stupid. The confrontation raises three major questions. Who enforces the law? And who is subject to it? If the military or individuals with military backing can act with impunity, what places, and of course, what place remains for civil oversight in the country? When is the use of force legitimate? It's another question. The presence of armed soldiers guarding what appears to be a land development site rather than a national security installation is deeply problematic. What happens to ordinary citizens when the powerful use land as an asset of dominance rather than a right? Now, parallel to this, look to Oyo State and Ibadan under the leadership of Engineer Abiodun Oluwaseyi. Compensation for the Senator Rashidi Ladoja Circular Road Corridor in Ibadan was begun in April 2025. The first tranche was 264 million naira. Later, by August 25, a further 200 million naira was released to beneficiaries, approaching a total of about 600 million naira. But in contrast to this, the governor said they have paid about 2 billion naira in compensation to impacted landowners. In contrast, again, the state also embarked on demolition of illegal properties on government-acquired land. For example, in Podo, in Ibadan, and Kolapo Ishola Estate. You saw what happened at Leri Adigun, somewhere around BCOS. These are places, Baywood Estate also showing up. These are places where you ask questions. One of compensation and planned acquisition, another of the demolition and anti-grab policy, points to the fact that the way land is handled matters deeply to social justice, economic inclusion, and development. But even here, questions arise, right? Whose land is being revoked? How transparent is the process? Do the vulnerable have any real say in all of this? Because when land institutions operate under the shadow of power rather than the law, the risk is that rights become optional and might becomes the norm. When the military shows up on a private land development site, or when high-ranking official or former high-ranking official direct armed men to seize land or guard that piece of land, we must ask these questions. Are we sliding towards rule by force instead of rule by law? It's a question today that I'll be throwing to my guest. This is a wake-up call, because for common man in Nigeria, the teacher, the artisan, the market seller, land is not just a financial asset. It is heritage, security, livelihood. And when laws are bent or broken by those in power, the cost is borne by many, not the few. Thank you for joining us on the show this evening. This is the Poliscope, and we have a lot to unpack. Well, I have my guest in the studio. He's a two-time aspirant of the legislative office in Nigeria. He's no other person than Honorable Isiaka Babatunde Gbadamosi. He's a sound mind when it comes to public affairs. He's one that knows so many things about what we want to discuss this evening. Honorable Isiaka Babatunde Gbadamosi, good to have you in the studio.
Many thanks for having me, Samson. It's good to be here.
We always love to have you on this show.
The pleasure.
Because where you come around, you tend to unpack a lot of things.
Thank you very much.
Right. Now, let me ask you this question very deeply. What happened between the governor of Rivers State, former governor of Rivers State, now the minister of the FCT? In fact, let's see the video again, and then we'll talk about it.
Okay.
We'll break it down into a layman's word, how people will understand it out there. All right, let's see the video where former governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, had an encounter, and of course, what you will call a little bit of a scuffle with a soldier out there. We'll be back.
How can that man at his level, even if he has a problem, he cannot reach me and say, look, I'm sorry, see what I have. He will send soldiers to intimidate who? We are all from this country. And this you cannot be higher than any government.
On the contrary.
You cannot be carrying gun to intimidate people to not to do their work.
On the contrary.
Let me tell you, if not going to choose for the first staff,
yes,
who spoke to me now,
yes,
you could have killed everybody here. No problem. I'm not one of those that they can intimidate.
But on the contrary.
And do my job.
We've just witnessed a very heated argument between you and the Can you take us back to when this started and what this is all about?
Well, it's unfortunate. And these are the kind of things that the task we are aware that the land department and the government control and mandated to see where the illegal group are going on and land grabbing. And when this was brought to my attention, I did instruct them to make sure that nothing takes place in as much as they don't have any legal papers in terms of legal approval or even acquisition of the land. And when they came here, I was informed that the soldiers of the military had to chase them away. And I thought probably they will be acting illegally. And so today, when I was in the office, while they came to implement the directive that was given to them by myself, I was called that the military have taken over the place. And I have to come by myself to see things for myself. It's really unfortunate. And you heard what the officer said was said by the former chief of naval staff. And I don't understand how somebody who attained that position, I see that he has a problem, cannot approach my office to say, look, this is what is going on, this is what is going on. Or simply because he's a military man, he could use that to intimidate Nigerians. I'm not one of those kind of persons that will succumb to blackmail or intimidation. And you can imagine where you cannot even prove where the documents and the director of the control is there. Look, I was here.
All right, welcome back. You saw that video. That was a Nyesom Wike.
Yes.
The face-off between Nyesom Wike and Lieutenant Ahem Yarima was something that has created a lot of backlash and buzz on social media and in some other quarters. Some have reacted about it. They have actually picked on that particular story and, of course, given out their thought on the issue. But I want to ask you very quickly, that face-off, what does that confrontation tell us about the power structure in Nigeria as we speak?
Okay, thank you very much once again. What happened in Abuja yesterday, I think yesterday, I suppose,
right,
was most unfortunate, most unfortunate. But the truth about it is that it has exposed some of the very deep-rooted contempt for constituted authority by those who believe that they have some kind of power or they wield some kind of authority and they could do things and get away with it. And this is what we are seeing. It's for somebody like me, I used to think that I haven't been in this democratic journey for the past 25 years now. We would have maybe shared all of this contempt and disregard for constituted authority and following due process and procedure. But obviously, these are still deep-rooted within, especially the uniform personnel. And for me, I think it is most unfortunate. The confrontation between the Honorable Minister and the officer, for me, was needless. You know, if I were to be in the minister's shoe, I would rather want to deal with whom is taking orders from
and not him,
rather than having to engage him in all of those exchange of words. You know, but what happened has happened. Unfortunately, I think we must address the issue of the rule of law. I was discussing with somebody and I said, if you look at the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces is the administrator of the Federal Capital Territory, as provided by the Constitution. The Constitution sees the Federal Capital Territory as a state. And just like you have a governor and you have a deputy governor, the president and the vice president are seen as those to administer the Federal Capital Territory. Just like you have the houses of assemblies in the states, you also have the National Assembly to make laws for the good governance
as the House of Assembly for the
exactly for the Federal Capital. Now, the Constitution provides that the president may, underline the word now, may delegate the duties of the administration of the FCT to the Honorable Minister. Now, the picture I'm trying to paint here is that in that altercation yesterday, the person who was standing there was the president. That was the president that the military were having altercation with, based on what the Constitution provides for. So I do not know how we can justify some of these things we do. We should have really weaned ourselves of all of this power struggle and all of that. I am a bit taken aback also by the fact that we have insurgency all over the country. We have security issues all over the country.
Right.
And from the video I saw, I could count about 7 to 8 military personnel carrying arms, weapons, with a vehicle. And that's almost a platoon of a military detachment. And you could deploy this to protect a piece of land for somebody's personal interest. I mean, it doesn't speak well of us as a people. It doesn't speak well of us as a government. It doesn't speak well of us as an authority, as in terms of the rule of law. So for me, I think it's a thing that it has happened. It's most unfortunate, but it has shown the deep-rooted contempt and disregard for the rule of law in this country.
Okay, for a country that is guided by the rule of law, how do we draw the lines between civil authority and what we call the military presence in civilian matters?
Well, the first thing is this, and I think you must have listened to that part of it too. If you listen, the officer was responding to one of the police officer who maybe also was saying something, that I am your superior.
Right.
Now, you see, these are some of the problems we have within the services. I'm talking of the uniform personnel. They see superiority in terms of the service I belong to. I'm in the Army, I'm in the Navy or the Air Force, you are a police officer, you are a civil defense. So there is this tendency, notwithstanding the rank, there's this tendency to want to look at, no, you are not, I am a superior officer to you. Now, as the Constitution provides, the only people who are constituted to pursue or to enforce civil issues are the Nigerian police. If this officer had issues with this piece of land, the appropriate thing would have been for him to approach the office of the Honorable Minister, or to go straight to the office of the Commissioner of Police in the FCT and make a case for it, and not use his influence to deploy the military. Now, this is what we have. For those who have the influence, they use it, and we are seeing it at the highest level, as it were, unfortunately. And you could also see it around happening elsewhere, where people would deploy military personnel for duties you call illegal duties and all of that. And I have insisted on this position that the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces must scrutinize what happened here. For me, I think we need to take a look at who authorized those officers to be at that point in the first instance. Because for me, that was not a duty. They should be. The duty of the military is to defend the territorial integrity of this country. And I do not think securing a property, a piece of land, is that belongs to an individual, is that part of the duty. So we must enforce the rule of law. I remember one of the presidents that insisted on the rule of law in this country was late President Musa Yar'Adua, if I'm not mistaken now. And he insisted that there must be rule of law. No matter who you are, you must follow due process. And I think we should go back to that. Nobody, it doesn't matter who you are, general, whoever you are, you cannot be above the law. You must follow due process. Now, I have been hearing so many narratives, and most of the narratives I've had has been from the office of the Honorable Minister of the FCT. We've not had anything from the officer that is concerned. At least let's know, give us proof of, say, you are the owner of this land in the first instance. I mean, if we want to set aside the issue of military personnel being there, we can set that aside and say, let the military authority deal with that, let the presidency deal with that. But this civil issue, let us get to know, how do you come to acquire this land?
The senior special assistant to the Minister of the FCT on media, that is Honorable Larry Olayinka,
yes,
this morning made some claims, and that it was it's something, just like you said earlier, that has not been debunked. He said that piece of land was allocated to a particular company to build a park.
Yes.
And after that, a few years later, that piece of land was not developed. They came back to the ministry and requested for the same authority, and they said it was given to them. And all of a sudden, while waiting for the approval from the ministry, they discovered the land was partitioned into different phases, and part of that was sold to the general in question.
Yes.
And after it was sold, they were now saying, look, you cannot sell a land that is meant for park. This is even a walkway. This is meant to be a corridor to a particular road that is yet to be constructed. Yes. And that was why Nyesom Wike left his office by himself and said, let me see for myself what exactly is going on there. But when he got there, discovered, oh, there were military personnel here, which in the first place, they should not be there because the land does not belong to the said general, according to documentation with the ministry.
Exactly.
Now, for people in that situation, how do you build on a particular piece of land that you don't even know what that land is meant for? And then, if you had gone through the right process,
yes,
you probably would have known that this land should not be for this particular. It's not for residential purpose. It is for a park. But do we still have people like that in the country who just build houses without caring what this piece of land is meant for?
No,
or the master plan?
The thing is this: some of these people we're talking about, they really believe that they could have their way in whatever they do, and that is part of what you see in the deployment of the military personnel and all of that. Because one of the fundamental procedure for you to build in FCT is beyond the acquisition of that land from whoever you have acquired it, you must process the land with the Federal Capital Authority, the FCT administration. You must go to AGs to see how you process the paper for that land properly. That is one. Two, you must present a building plan
For approval.
To the development control. Now, development control are those that are saddled with approving whatever you want to build on a particular piece of land, which has been said not to have been, approval has not been gotten anyway. So the question is, how do you go about building without approval? Besides that, I do know that there's also the aspect of the federal capital where you have to do what you call an impact assessment of whatever it is you want to build, especially where maybe is a very big structure in terms of maybe the height of the building or maybe the expanse of land. You need to do what you have impact assessment for that area. All of these are things that you need to go through, proper documentation. And I'm sure that this officer must have been contacted severally to say, okay, we have seen all of this that we have done, but let's see your documentation. And this has not happened. So I would expect to hear from me, because I wouldn't know the justification he has, but I want to see whatever it is he has in the public domain. Just like we already have in the public domain what the FCT is claiming, you know. And I want to believe that maybe the presidency and then maybe the FCT, I must say this, that the Federal Capital Territory Minister, for me, is doing a good job. His style might not be acceptable to everybody, but he is doing a good job, and he has the mandate of the president to do the job he's doing. And if he does have the mandate of the president to do the job he's doing, I think he should be accorded all the respect and dignity and honor that is necessary for him to execute that duty accordingly. And nobody should do anything to truncate such a process.
Okay, of all, let me quickly bring this on before I ask the next question. Of all the positions that could have been given to Nyesom Wike when he was invited by the APC government to work with them, it was the ministry, of course, at the FCT. And that means that the president knows that he could deliver in that place. Yes. Maybe he needed a radical person to carry out this responsibility.
The truth about it is this. If you look at the FCT over time, those that have impacted in the development of the FCT are ministers that had a radical background. And you see it in Nasiru El-Rufai when he was minister of the FCT, right, and the kind of development and changes that happened, and the kind of antagonism that followed even after he had left office. Okay, and that's exactly what we are seeing with the Nyesom Wike. And when you need somebody to deliver on a job that you know is difficult, you must get somebody also that understands how to push the frontiers, you know. And I know Minister Wike will not back down in this, and appropriately so. He shouldn't back down, because except if the president and commander-in-chief says, well, this is not what I assigned to you to do, fine. But other than that, he's on the course to get his job done, and I think he's doing it well.
When you find soldiers interfering in civil matters, now, is it an abuse of power or failure of the civil institutions in the country?
Well, I think it stems from our military background, military intervention in the democratic process over the years. And just like I said earlier, it's something that we ought to, over time, have completely gotten out of our system. Because let's take a look at it. This young officer that was that had the altercation with the minister, if you look at him by virtue of, I don't know what his age is, by virtue of his rank, he's a lieutenant. That would be maybe an equivalent of a captain or a lieutenant in the Nigerian Army, maybe is about 10 years or thereabout in service, about thereabout. I'm not very sure.
So I saw a video, just like to buttress your point, I saw a video of a particular person that said he knew him as a graduate of the Nigerian military academy. That was in 2015.
Okay.
2015 to 2025, that should be 10 years.
So if that is the case, it means to me that he went through the academy during this time of democracy, during this 25 years period that we're in the democracy. So the question is, what are the things we are teaching? What are the information being impacted on all of these young officers that are coming out? Yes, I really love his confidence, his standing his ground. Yes, that's what we expect of a military officer. But that was the wrong place. And I do not blame him for it. I blame those who instructed him to go and carry out such an order.
Okay, very quickly, let's address this before I move on. There is this syndrome, and I want us to talk about it this evening, where a Nigerian who was once a civilian in uniform, who believes he is superior to a fellow Nigerian because he's not in any uniform. How do we eradicate this kind of mindset that says, because I'm in uniform, regardless of you have no rank or whatsoever, I'm superior to you?
Yes.
And this time they use bloody civilian. It really gets under my knife.
The thing is this: if you look at where we copy all of the things we do from, be it the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, any of these countries, there is none of them that any military personnel can do any such thing and get away with it. None. You might remember when the Secretary of Defense, or Secretary of War as they call him now, of the United States, was addressing generals in a conference room. He assembled all the generals and he was addressing them, and they were all akimbo. They were listening with rapt attention, and the address was not nice. It was reeling out to them a kind of a marching order of what they want, and if you are not up to it, you better use the exit door. Now, that is how it should be. Besides that, it doesn't matter your rank. Your duty as a military personnel is for you to protect Nigeria and Nigerians to the least person. So it doesn't matter whether you're a general in the Nigerian Army, Navy, or Air Force. Your duty is to protect Nigerians, their properties, and defend the territorial integrity of this country. That is your duty. And that is a duty that you cannot take lightly. Now, some people have said, we must accord them respect, we must do all of that. Yes, it's good. Very, very true. But other people too have professions. And professionals are in their various fields. And these professionals have gone very far in their various fields. So, because you say somebody is a uniformed personnel, it means that Nigerians must always worship or something. No, the military is a profession, just like any other profession. And it is a willing thing. If you choose to be a military personnel and I choose to be a journalist, it doesn't mean that you are superior to me in any way. It's just a matter of the choice of a profession. If I choose to be a medical doctor and you choose to be a military personnel, you are not superior in any way. It's just about the profession we have both chosen. So I think that it's high time that we start to take a good look at the kind of things that are taught to these young officers in all of the uniform, in all of the services I'm talking about now. I'm not just talking about the Army, the Navy, or the Air Force, even in the police force. There is a need for us to look at what are we really putting into them at the training. Because it is what they imbibe during training, that's exactly what they will exhibit when they come into the society. That is why they will look at themselves as being superior to others, which is not in any way. So I think it's high time that we take a look at these curriculums, we start examining them. What are the things that these young cadets are being taught in those institutions.
Okay, very quickly, Honorable Isaka Babatunde Gwadamosi, before we come back to the ancient city of Ibadan, there's this particular thing I would love us to touch. And now, let's talk about the difference and how it works when we talk about influence and due process. How does it work, especially in a country like Nigeria?
Okay, well, one of the things you see with due process in this country is we have unfortunately made due process to be a very cumbersome thing.
Is the bureaucratic process the reason why due process is no longer necessary for some people and influence has to come?
That is a good reason. The bureaucracy within, and for me, you see, if maybe government is able to think out of the box and look at and make this whole red tapeism and the bureaucracy a bit lighter, such that people would be encouraged to do the right thing. I mean, it doesn't take all of maybe 6 months, 1 year, and all of that to get all of these things done. It makes it easier, and it makes it easier for people to comply. Okay, and you see, Nigeria is such a country that today most people would rather use their influence rather than want to go through the normal channel or the normal process, due process. And that for me is most unfortunate. And until we come back to a system whereby we are able to follow the due process, so that nobody is accorded any kind of special attention because of maybe the position he holds, then we'll be building the democracy. Then we'll be building an egalitarian society, a society where everybody feels a sense of belonging. And not until you know anybody for you to get anything. Until then, I think some of the things we see today might still be happening.
Okay, all right. Very quickly, I want us to digress a little bit. Yes, we started from the city of Abuja, and that was the issue between Lieutenant A.M. Yerima and the Minister of the FCT, the former governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike. Now, let's talk about Oyo State. Let's talk about what is going on here. And before I delve into anything, let's see this particular video of how the Nigerian people, the Oyo State citizens, protested yesterday. And then we'll get the reaction to how they reacted afterwards. We'll be back.
This peaceful mega protest is not political. It does not have any element of politics. We are protecting our properties, and we are appealing to the government through the governor to please do the circular road and leave the corridor. The circular road has been acquired in 2005, and most of us have been there before circular road. Some even came after circular road and saw the pillar of the circular road before buying land, before erecting building. So we don't have anything to do with politics. We did not collect money from anybody. No more. Appealing to the government.
You saw the people on the circular road. From all 11 local governments in Ibadan, they protested. Some called the governor too many unprintable names. Reacting, you might want to blame them, but most times if you look deeper, scratch beyond the surface, you would realize the fact that most people will react based on how pained they are. I've heard stories of people. I've heard about someone who didn't know for a fact that everything that makes him a human being is underlain all have been destroyed. He has nothing anymore, not even a church, because those places were demolished without picking a pin from the house. And the large expanse of land he kept for himself to sell later on, all cleared. So nothing left. Compensations were made, just like the governor, he said they have spent about 2 billion naira. But when we checked about how the process was done, it's about 600 million naira spent so far, unless something was done when nobody actually know so much about it. People are reacting, calling the governor some sort of names. The circular road, the corridor, Governor Seyi Makinde, at a crossroad. He responded here today while he was commissioning the bus terminal in the road. And he said, well, he's been called so many names, but he's not bothered. This is his second term in office. Yes, he has a right not to be bothered. Am I correct?
No. He should be bothered. He should be bothered. He should be bothered not because there is any kind of repercussion that those people will do to him. No. But he should be bothered because he's the governor of the state. He should be bothered because he's saddled with the responsibility of taking care of the welfare, the peace and welfare of the people of the state. Their security is vested in him. Now, the mandate he exercised today was given to him by those people. So he should be bothered. He has a job and a duty to the people to take a look at their concern genuinely and address it.
Okay, before you go further, Honorable, I was speaking with someone earlier today who was meant to be on the show with you, to be on the show for the last 5 minutes or thereabout. Another pained individual whose properties have been taken away from him by the demolition of houses by the corridor of the circular road. And he gave me 2 African proverbs, Yoruba proverbs. He said, and I quote, "You will be the one to interpret. I don't want to go through that stress." He said, "Tandi lari taniko mojo, tandi lelei." And he now said something else after that. He said, "I really do not understand what he meant by that, but then maybe you would understand better."
Well, maybe I'll leave him to come and interpret it when he comes into the studio. But interestingly, that is very instructive. You know, I just like I said, the governor has a duty. He has a duty to the people of this state. He has a duty to those people that are directly affected. He has a duty to those that elected him into office. Okay. Then, besides that, whatever development you are bringing to the state, and such development is affecting adversely the peace and quiet of the people of the state, that is not a development that is needed. Now, the circular road for me is a project that is very, very
commendable.
Good. Commendable. Very good. I don't have a problem with it. But when you are talking of taking this expanse of land you want to take, now, if you build this road, you are supposed to, at the end of the day, bring development to all of those vicinity around that road. All of these people that had land on that area should be beneficiaries and say, oh, when Governor Seyi Makinde built this road, that was when the value of our property appreciated. That was when we were able to negotiate with some of those people who needed land along this corridor. When we negotiated with them and we got a very good bargain. Now, these are the kind of benefit that will come to the people. But when government decide to acquire the land and redistribute that land to some other persons, and these people are already being told that they should move away from there and that this land has been reallocated to them. Now, that is something to be very worried about. And I think government is not done that way. You must look at the people and develop at their own pace. For me, if today that road is completed, or maybe that road is completed to a certain extent, you would have, the value of property around that place would have appreciated greatly. And if it has appreciated, it means that those that have property on that road, on that area, in that corridor, would have to maybe vacate the corridor when they see a very good negotiation and bargain to be paid to them to leave. It's not, the government even doesn't need to pay, because I have had 1 or 2 of them who said after the demolition of their property, they were paid about 400 and something thousand.
50,000, some 140,000.
I asked a question, what kind of a structure are you paying for? And there is this argument also that has been put in the public space that most of them do not have land papers. I say, good. Most of the houses that you have around in Ibadan don't have land papers. So why is government not doing everything possible to process papers for them? Process their papers and do the needful for them. Government is in place for the good of the people. Somebody said something and said, I think I listened to it on radio, and the person said, the land in this state belongs to the government. And I said, no, that is not correct. The land belongs to the people. It is vested in the governor and the government to manage on their behalf. Okay. So you cannot appropriate it to their disadvantage. So I think the governor needs to take a closer look. He should be bothered. I think he should be worried even. The kind of rhetorics I have been hearing and all of that is not good. Even if he doesn't bother about the rhetorics, he should pay attention to the fact that these are my people, they are from my state, and their welfare and well-being is my responsibility as a governor of the state.
The governor said the current protest in Oyo State is politically motivated. He mentioned that. Videos to that effect, where he said it. Going forward, before now, the gubernatorial candidate of the Accord Party in the last general election in Oyo State, the gubernatorial candidate of Accord Party, Adebayo Adelabu, who is now the Minister of Power in the country, paid a visit, or they paid a visit to him, the people on the corridor. And then he gave them, I think, 25 million naira, if I'm not mistaken. He gave them some money. And after that, he promised that I was going to visit them again and give them an additional 1 million naira as transport. I said, look, take this money. Whatever it is you can do with it, I'll come back and visit you and then make some more payments to you. And he said, I will deliver your message to the president when I get to Abuja, that this is what is happening in Oyo State. Is this politics? Or it is born out of genuine love for the people in the country?
Let me be very straightforward with you. There isn't a thing like this that would happen and you will not have the political undertone to it. People will take advantage of it. The politicians will take advantage of it. And I must tell you the truth about the fact that the APC in this state and all the other opposition parties, for me, have not even taken advantage of it enough.
Of it enough?
Yes, they have not. For me, the parties have been sleeping. They ought to have taken advantage of this situation. The governor does not need to make excuses. For me, I see him as making excuses. Making excuses that is politically motivated. No. Deal with the problem. There will be political undertone to everything you do or say. You are a politician. You are in the political space.
Is the governor being reckless at this time?
Reckless is not the word. I think the governor is looking at the fact that is running a second term, so come what may, he doesn't really care. He's going to run his term to conclusion. What you ought to do is, whether it is politics or not, solve the problem. There's a problem on ground. That is the fact. If you say people are being motivated to do this because of their politics, that is not correct. For me, it's making excuses. You don't make excuses when you have a genuine problem on your plate.
Honorable Gbadamosi, you drive through Ibadan. A part of Agodi Gardens is now Baywood Estate.
Yes.
The amusement park.
The amusement park is gone, yes.
Is now an estate.
Yes.
BCOS, a part of BCOS is now Lady Adigun Estate.
Of course, yes.
And so many other places.
So many other places, yes.
They have been sold, clean and clear. And the governor is not shy about it.
Yes.
The Agbo shopping complex was given out as a contract to someone who visibly cannot execute the project. It is there.
Yes.
Untouched for a few months now. What is going on? Is the governor selling off Oyo State gradually?
I don't want to believe that because I don't have any evidence to that effect. But the point, as we are saying, is not, for me, it's not very good. In fact, it's not good at all. I mean, how do you explain? For me, one of the ones that really was very painful is the park. I mean, that's the only recreational park you can really talk of
in Ibadan,
as it were, where people will go to during festive season. I would have expected that place should be expanded and the government should make it far better and a place where people could really enjoy themselves. And the other one that maybe you did not mention is the Agodi Garden.
Agodi Gardens, I just mentioned that. Almost half of, more than half of Agodi
Garden is supposed to be, or it was, what you would call the carbon zinc for Ibadan metropolis.
Have you been there lately?
Yes, I've driven past.
There's nothing happening in there.
The whole place has been leveled. A great chunk of the land has been leveled
that usually used to be there is no longer there.
Now, you see, the thing is this. When you are even talking about the issue of sustainability and climate change, you must have a very good policy that drives your people towards climate action, planting of trees and all of that. But what are we seeing? The few trees that are there in a place like Agodi Garden has been fallen. And what you are creating is that you are creating an environment with a lot of carbon dioxide, and the environment is continuously saturated. There is no tree to absorb this. And they have not seen any, since the last 6 years of this administration, any kind of beautification process or a process where you want to maybe plant more trees, plant more plants to provide a carbon sink such that they would absorb all of this carbon dioxide.
When they resumed office, they removed all the solar panels on our roads.
But we're having them back today.
And they put generators by the roadside. Now they are returning the solar
exactly.
back to the roads. Why remove it in the first place?
Those are some of the policies of assault you see in the government. Besides that, when the governor came in, one of the campaign points was the issue of you were having what you call the Education Trust Fund and asked to pay some money. But today the Education Trust Fund as a policy is back. And the governor is now embracing it, even though it has given it a different coloration. But it's back. You see, the point is this. We must genuinely look at problems and address them properly. We cannot attribute everything to being politically motivated. No. Things happen in this state, and we must look at what are the solutions to the problem. The issue of climate I talk about, Ibadan today is the largest city in Nigeria. We are looking at a lot of an emission of a lot of carbon, of CO2 into the atmosphere. What effort has this government put in place in the last 6 years to see that they put trees and things that could absorb all of this CO2 and make the environment much more comfortable? I do not know whether you have observed. The weather is becoming hotter, especially when you are moving towards this time we have. November, December, into January, the temperature rise. In fact, that temperature, the kind of temperature we are having now, used to be what I experienced when I live in a place like Bauchi and Gombe. So, what it means is that we are not doing enough for the environment.
Well, I would have asked you what you would like to say to Governor Seyi Makinde at this time, but you mentioned a few of them. But in 30 seconds, what would you say to the governor at this time?
Well, I would say that the governor has a duty to the people of the state. He should be bothered and very worried about what is going on, and he should look for genuine solutions to the problems. He should jettison the idea of saying that it is politically motivated. No. There will be politics read into everything that happened. That is a fact. Okay? So, that's the way I think the governor should go. Okay,
Honorable Isaka Babatunde Gbadamosi, thank you for joining us on the show this evening. It has been a wonderful, eye-opening session with you.
Many thanks for having me.
And you actually said something that actually got to me, that we have what we call policy somersault. We'll talk about that some other time. As we wrap up tonight's edition of the Poliscope, the takeaway is clear. Democracy is not simply the right to vote and hold office. It is the rule of law in action, accountability in practice, and fairness in process. So, when might overrides right, the fabric of governance unravels. The confrontation between Minister Wike and soldiers in Abuja may be a dramatic representation of this conflict between power and principle. But it is not a one-off. We see similar tensions in land revocations and allocations across Nigeria, in Ibadan, and of course in Ibadan Circular Road, the corridor, in Oyo State's efforts to compensate landowners while cracking down on illegal occupiers, and elsewhere where land becomes a tool for control rather than a public trust. So for ordinary Nigerians, the message must be clear. Stay informed, protect your rights, demand transparency. For policymakers, it is clear too. The obligation is clear. Ensure processes are fair to everyone, documented, transparent, and accessible, so that land is not a weapon of power at this time, but an asset of the people. Thank you for joining us on the Poliscope this evening. I am Samson Balogun, and this has been the Poliscope on Dominion Television. Until next week, same time, I say good night and stay alert to who holds the power and how they use it.